T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. We are live.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Looks like Molly is frozen up there in the corner, y'all.
Oh no! Well,
Are you? No, there you are. Are you moving? Sorta,
It's
kind
a
of.
lag.
It's a lag. We've been working out some technical difficulties, you guys. Welcome to a special episode of Duncan Religion. If you give me a moment, I'm going to make sure we can share our stream.
Hey, everyone.
Make sure you share our stream too, you guys. I'm going to start a watch party. Hang on one second.
Okay.
So that everybody knows that we are on. Let's see here.
share the stream. So go on the Facebook page and share it to my page.
Yes. Let's share the stream so that people know that we are on.
I don't know
Molly,
how to do that.
Molly, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, if you actually go on my page, the stream is there. You can share it from there.
Okay.
It's just live or just, popped up for me now.
Did it?
Okay.
Oh, okay. I don't know why it takes so long. So anyway, thank you guys for coming to a special stream of Duncan Religion. We are discussing a very, how can I say this? This particular series has a cult following. Was that a bad joke? Maybe that's a bad joke. But I want us to actually start to go around the virtual round table to kind of introduce ourselves and tell everybody, whether or not you've been familiar with the series before. And then let's get into it. Let's start with Molly. Molly, I already know you've watched this like a million times. I don't even know what I'm about to ask you, but go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I love Aaron Paul, and when I first heard about this series, I was like, yo, I have to watch this. But then life kept happening, so I didn't. And then now that we're on lockdown, I'm like, okay, I got some time. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch the shit out of this. And so I did. And then I posted about it, and then everyone was like, let's review this together. So here we are.
So
And
you've watched it a few times. I guess I've watched it maybe twice, the series, but I have to let you in on a secret. I did not finish season 3, so that's gonna be exciting for me. I didn't finish the last.
Right.
What was it? STZ, the last 6 episodes.
Yeah, pretty much. I think we kind of trailed off after a little bit, but yeah, something to look forward to.
Okay.
I think
I watched it all.
Yeah, I watched the first season like 3 times. Once for entertainment, second for just kind of soaking it in to review, and then the third time I watched it obsessively. And here you have the
She took notes.
results.
Wow.
Yeah.
I watched all 3 seasons in 2 weeks.
You got character maps, and
I feel like I'm slacking because I just got really high and faded in and out of multiple episodes one night.
That's more like me. I had to watch it like 6 times to figure out what happened. I couldn't.
I tried to rewatch it. I tried to rewatch episode 1 last night. I was gone by like 30 minutes. But
Oh my goodness.
I remember enough of it. I remember
You
enough
have
of
to watch this high, because if you watch The Path, you know that they get high.
Yeah, part of it is getting high.
You're not slacking. You're not slacking. I'm just OCD.
Okay, so RC, this was your first experience with The Path, right?
Yeah.
And how far are you up to? Just
I
curious.
mean, I've seen bits and pieces of the whole first season,
Mhm.
across 2 nights. But yeah, like I said, I'm typically awake for about the first hour, and then it's like in and out.
It's like watching you at some
So
point.
yeah, so I just basically made sure I got up to date on episode one. I figure I'll catch up with the rest later, make
Oh,
sure that
that's
I
what I
remember
did.
everything. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
even though I
like
seen it, it was hard to remember it all.
I've seen some of the reveals down the road. I know kind of when they start talking about the heavy stuff and some of that. So
Okay, so you and I experienced this together, STZ, when it hit Hulu.
Right. I think that was about 2017,
16, I think.
16.
16. Okay.
16.
And
I,
yeah, it
I know
was.
because
Go ahead.
Aaron Paul was fresh off of like the Breaking Bad high, and then I was like, oh, this boy is getting them like serious roles. I see, and I was like, okay, I wanna watch this. But then Hungary has a very um weird thing, and I was with my abusive ex, and then had to move around, and a bout of homelessness happened, and then I forgot because my brain it does everything, but it doesn't need to. So anyway,
So STZ,
now
tell
I
us
watched this.
a little bit about your experience with it.
Um, I came across it after leaving the witnesses, so I was wide awoke, and it seemed like it came just at the right time. Um, it actually opened my mind up without giving like too much away, but it opened my mind up to start thinking, like start questioning some of the stuff that I had just always accepted. And I saw myself a lot, particularly in the character. I mean, in all the characters, because I mean, I spent my entire life as a witness, so my perspective changed throughout the years. Like I saw myself as Hawk, I saw myself as Eddie, I saw myself as Cal at some points, and it was like I say, it was eye opening for me. And the parallels that it had to my life were, crazy.
All right, so let's begin by going around and talking about our characters. And Molly, you have the big character. You have Eddie. You want to tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
Eddie and try to keep it to as much as you can to the first episode.
and I'm gonna try, but it's gonna be hard. Anyway, so Adeline is, well, I guess the main character, and he was indoctrinated after his brother died, and he actually is married into the organization as well, raised two kids in it, and he actually has, a promotion just as we set foot in his life, and actually he's returning from being promoted, so to say, to 6R, and there some
Sorry.
some shit happens to him that makes him question whether it is actually true what he believes, because he gets shit faced on ayahuasca, and his mind is like, whoa, dude, I'm high as shit, but it doesn't make. I'm joking, but basically that's the point. He's like, oh, hold on, something is not right. And when he gets home, he actually seeks out outside information and speaks to an IS, or a denier, as they would say, or their version of an apostate. And he's like mortified of it, and he very early on in his doubts realizes that once he becomes open about it, it's gonna be the end of his life as of a family man, because his family is just not gonna talk to him anymore. And um basically, what else did I notice? I'm just looking through my notes. And then there's that particular scene where they are talking around that campfire kind of thing, but it's not a lit, but they are sitting around and talking, and Eddie is oversharing, like, at least to any healthy person. He seems to be oversharing about how, you know, his brother saved his life, and then his brother died, and then he, you know, his story is like, I ran to the closest mayorist office and signed up, and then my life was saved. And basically, I was like, whoa, that's actually what I did as a witness. I was like that, exactly like that. I was like, oh well, this bad stuff happened to me, then this bad stuff happened to me, and then Jehovah happened, and then it seems like it doesn't happen anymore. And it also feels like he's not genuine. Like, do I believe that once his brother died, he found Meyerists and got interested? Yes, but do I believe that he ran across town because he saw a pamphlet and he was like, oh my god, I need to have this in my life? I think that's you know, like a Christian testimony. Most of them are like very exaggerated and very like Spanish telenovela, like like, you know, most of them are like very overly dramatic, and you know that the base of it is real. Like, they believe that it happened, they believe in what they are saying, but you know it's not, most likely not what actually ensued, and they use these testimonies or like confessionals to lure members in, like, oh,
Okay,
look at
and we're
him,
gonna
he's
get to right. We're gonna get to how I think we talked briefly about this. How cults prey on people with huge problems, whether it's death of a
right,
loved one, drugs,
right,
or they complain about the present world and looking forward to something else different.
yeah,
But I just don't want it to get lost that your character is the main character and that he is actually going through a series of doubts about the
mhm.
religion, and then Ramona, your character that you're dealing with. Can you tell us a little bit about your character?
You talking about Sarah?
Sarah, right, who is actually married to Molly, right? Is it Sarah?
Which one? Which
Wait,
one
wait,
did
wait.
you give me? Because
Was it
Yeah, who
Sarah?
do I have? I thought
I
I
think
had
I
RC
believe
Sarah.
it
has.
was Sarah.
I think RC has Sarah. We probably should have
Who did you
established
give me?
that.
Yeah.
Hang
You can give me anyone. I can jump in.
on. Okay. So I'm working with Cal. STZ, you're working with Hawk. RC, you're working with
I'm
Sarah.
Sarah. I'm Molly's wife.
Your Molly's wife. And
This is
then
weird.
the other character that we had was, let's see. Why don't you? I don't know if you know this character. This character appeared. Her name is Allison Kemp. But what about let's talk about Mary Cox, because I think she's a
Okay,
very
Yeah, I think she's a
complicated.
good character.
Yeah.
I can do Mary. Okay. Well, my character Mary, she was not a Myris, but she was involved in the tornado that tore up her trailer park that she lived in, and they were devastated. They didn't have food and water, so she was standing there looking at all the destruction that she was in the midst of, and so when she was there, this group just swooped in and start giving water to people because they were so thirsty, and they went and covered them up and was offering them help, and she was one of the ones they took back to the camp. And then she had also had such a destructive life because of the way she was raised, because her dad had sold her for sex. And so when she got a hold to the Myris, at least when they got a hold of her, she saw peaceful people. They were living together in harmony, and she just was in complete awe of it. And she also admired the leader, Cal. And so she ended up with this huge crush on him. And she was easily to be preyed upon because she had lack of knowledge, because she was not well educated. She was the prime suspect that will fall into Myerism. And I can correlate this. I wasn't that person, but I can correlate this with a lot of people that I saw that joined the Jehovah's Witnesses, because over my years, I saw people who were not well educated. They came from destitute situations where they didn't have much. And when you join someone like the Jehovah's Witnesses, you come in there and they have beautiful Kingdom Halls, and they have all these smiling people and people willing to give you clothes and clothing, and they're picking you up, and then you go to the assemblies, and it's beautiful in our assembly halls and look like a paradise. So they're thinking this world is better than where I came from, and this is what I want to be.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good. I think we're off to a good start. So we have Mary Cox, and then I guess I'll swoop in at this point and talk about Cal, which I think is a complicated character because he's one of the main characters. He's
Mhm.
like the de facto. He's declared himself the leader of this cult because
Also,
the cult leader is away. And
sorry, but
yeah,
can we shout out that actor though? Because uh, I'm still like mind blown over the fact that he is Will Graham from Hannibal. I was like, wait, what?
yeah.
Like I did not recognize him. He looks so much like older and more like troubling in a way as Cal. Like
Yeah, well, I do. That's one of
So,
the. I don't know what it is about characters like Cal. I think if it's like movies or any series, I'm always drawn to the darker characters, almost the villains. I've always said this.
mhm.
People who know me know that I always, but I don't really consider him too much as a villain. I mean, I didn't because even though he's a charismatic and his ambition often puts him at odds with what the leadership of the organizational leadership is. You'll find, and I don't want to give too much away, that he has a complicated, broken past himself.
Mhm.
I mean,
Go
if
ahead.
we're talking about the leader, the leader that is kind of counseling Sarah at some point and has a
Yes.
past relationship. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like that guy is 19-year-old to say 28-year-old me.
Hmm.
You know, like that's the Uber dub. That's the
Right.
guy, like the super ministerial servant, wants to become an elder, wants to get to the next level, wants to help everybody out, even when they are being problematic and abusive. They are thinking they're doing the right thing because that's what the organization has taught them to do.
Right.
So they think they're shepherding when they're actually controlling people.
Mhm.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that, RC, because at some point, with Ramona's character, Sarah Cox comes up to him and like wants to, I guess, try to have sex with him, and he could sense right off that she was very broken, and he
Yeah.
was
That was
like,
Mary Cox.
Mary, yeah.
Sorry, Mary, not Mary. Oh, I'm saying Sarah was Mary. Yeah,
Yep.
he can sense. It's like almost these leaders can almost sense the brokenness in people and to exploit it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
can we also say about that yeah, at first he says like, oh no, but then like one episode later or something like that, he actually is like,
Yeah.
oh well, nothing to do here,
Yeah.
and then he just lets it happen. Which
Yeah.
well, first of all, uh, that's very well. I'm not gonna say abusive, given the fact that Mary actually instigates the situation, but that in a sense it is abusive because Mary instigates the situation for a reason. She's used to man cracking the whip at her and telling her how to fuck someone. And she
Yeah.
sees that in Cal. That's why she's drawn to him. So Cal clearly and explicitly says that he knows that. He should have like diffused that situation right off the gate and say, no, I'm not attracted to you. Because guess what? As a leader, like if your secretary comes up to you and you're like the CEO of your company, you must say no. That's a clear power imbalance, and it's gonna cause like an opener like multitude of pathways to abuse.
But Cal is so severely flawed in that he survived traumatic childhood and sexual abuse himself. So
Mhm.
I don't want to give too much away, but he goes throughout the whole series trying to reconcile his own trauma.
I think for
And
me,
SPC one.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. I didn't mean to overtalk you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, SCZ.
I think for me, what I found really interesting about Mary is that she was really one of the only ones who was okay with not believing. Like she could do it without believing. Like she mentioned how she had this ability just to turn her mind off. Like when her father would, basically sell her to his friends, she could separate herself from situations. So you could tell she had a different goal in being there from everybody else.
Hmm.
And eventually it kind of plays out, but it just in that
Interesting.
first episode, she wanted to know who was in charge, and she made a
Hmm.
move at who was in charge. It was like she,
Hmm.
and you kind of see that in other religions or cults or whatever, somebody who's
Hmm.
just focused on moving up. They want to know who's in
Hmm.
charge. I'm going to tie my horse to that wagon. I'm going to move up. And like I said, for me, I could recognize people I've seen at different points in my life, in that character.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's interesting because at some point, if we're talking about like some of the similarities, I think Ramona brought up the RBC disaster relief type work that
Hmm.
was going on, and
Hmm.
it's also in an upstate New York compound, which I thought was interesting.
Hmm.
They have
Well,
pamphlets and the love bombing.
can,
I think that's what we're talking about, the love bombing that goes on.
And the garden.
yeah. Hmm.
Go ahead, Molly.
Everybody's like me.
Like, yeah, I just want to say about the like charitable work. Actually, I watched some interviews as well because, like I said, y'all, I'm OCD. Like I watched some interviews because I wanted to understand where the entire thing was coming from, and the creator of the series actually said that after her father died, she dived into religion and she picked up the like Pentecostal stuff about the Ascension Day or the day of the Pentecost, and the singy songy thing about the Pentecostals, and then she picked up some like the ladder in the sky and the garden and stuff from like Eastern religions, and she like
Hmm.
mishmashed them together to create this. And she said my main goal was to create this mixture of elements that would create a show and a belief system that's a cult, but I did not want to come out swinging. And I've seen someone criticize the show for that they are like, oh, they are flip-flopping about how the cult works, and I'm like, yes, because that's what cults do. And I guess the author
Hmm.
of that certain article uh review, it was I checked out some professional reviews to kind of gear myself up. And she was like, I don't understand why she flip flops so much. Are they benign? Are they malevolent? And I'm like, well, they are neither and both. That's what cults are. And that's what I wanted to mention here because of the RBC, like catastrophe relief and stuff, is that it's interesting because JWs, they don't do it for outsiders. They only do it for the, the fellow JWs. But I think it's, well, don't misunderstand me. Please do charity. Please do relief work if you want to and if you can. If you can afford it, if you have the means and physical power to, please do. But at the same time, it's very uh, toxic, and I guess it's Hawk who says it best down the line. It's like, how can they say no when they are staying in our house? Otherwise, they would be homeless. And I'm like, exactly. How could they say no when you rebuild their home? How could they be rude to you? And I think society needs to reassess what it is to be a rude, because saying, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in God, I'm not a very religious person, should not be considered something that's rude. But it is. It is considered rude to reject preach, when someone comes up to you on the street with the Bible, it seems rude to reject. It's not. Like, if anyone walks up to you with a Bible or a religious pamphlet and you're not interested, say it. It's not rude. Society just needs to accept that some people are just not interested in spirituality or religion, and it's cool. Religious, like, churches should do relief work, but at the same time they should not use it in a way to like lure members in. They should just do the work and zip their mouth about God. They know who you are. If they are interested in God, they will find your church. You can even leave pamphlets, but don't walk up to these vulnerable people and start preaching at them, because they are in a condition that makes them vulnerable to make decisions they don't really want to, or necessarily wouldn't when they would be in a stable set of mind.
So that's some of the similarities of the Jehovah's Witnesses versus this cult. With Myerism is actually a made up cult by the director. She said she took, or that by the writer, they took elements from a lot of different cults to make up the one cult. So you have the RBC disaster relief work. You have them giving out pamphlets. You have the love bombing and the recruiting that they're doing. We'll get into later on how they are, they spy, they have meetings. Is there any other similarities that you guys saw with the Myerism cult? Because a lot of people, I mean, they would aptly say that this is not a cult. Most people who are in a cult don't actually believe that they're in a cult. I would say that, again, like what Molly was saying, preying on people with huge problems. That's a big one. Because in every one of the, can you hear? Are you talking? Oh, I'm on mute.
RC is muted.
RC is
RC is muted. There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh yeah. Well, I was gonna say, because I think we've talked about this before, but a lot of groups use some of these tactics. It's not as heavy-handed. Sometimes it's more heavy-handed. One of my ex-JW friends is dealing with some financial stuff for a few years, and some friend of a friend invited her to some free like Thanksgiving dinner or something like that at a church. And then she has the same thing. She shared it on Facebook, where she gets an email from somebody that was like, "Oh, so I saw you at our Thanksgiving dinner and blah, blah, blah. And I was just thinking about seeing how you're doing, and maybe I could pick you up for church on Sunday." And then she felt that obligation, right? Like they reeled her in with this social thing with food and give her help. And now she's like, "Oh, do I need to go to a church service?" Fortunately, we told her, like, "Hey, if that's the game, they should have set it up front, so you don't obligate yourself to go." But I think a lot of people don't get that. It's the same thing with sales tactics. If they give you a little gift for showing up, that's a known sales tactic, that by giving somebody a gift and making it a nice environment for them to come, and then when they want to leave and not purchase, and it's like, "Oh, you leaving? Well, we made this nice dinner for you, and we gave you this gift. Can't you just stay for 20 more minutes and listen to our pitch?" And so they'll, timeshares, for example, is an example of that. Timeshares, they will tell you you're going to get this free stuff. And then when you go there and you get the free stuff and you listen to the little sales pitch and you're like, "Okay, I did my end, you did your end," they will guilt you like crazy for leaving without buying anything, and it reminds me of that same thing where, you've taken all these people off the street, you've done all these things for them. Now what are they going to do?
Right.
They're going to feel obligated.
And like when nobody is looking to join a cult, you initially start off wanting to join a community to help you grow in some way, or make you better in some way, or so that you can have a contribution that you feel is meaningful in some way. It's not only until you come involved with a cult and you try to leave that you realize that it's a cult. And we see in the beginning, and STZ Hawk your character makes a brief appearance, right?
Yeah, he wasn't very But first of all, before I start talking about him, I'm just gonna. Can we just look at his hair? Okay, it's like Heath Ledger and Chris Helmsworth had a child, and the hair is just flowing. Okay, I just had to highlight that. Anyway, he reminded me a lot of, like I say, myself kind of growing up. He was born in, like his mother was, except he didn't necessarily see a lot of the secular world like his mother saw. So his view was a lot more innocent. It was a lot more untarnished by the ignorant systemites. I mean, and that was another comparison. Like they spoke of the secular world as ignorant systemites. We spoke of the outside world as worldly. You know, it was we were on a mountain looking down at the rest of the world, and he kind of has that mentality. It's a lot of naivety because that's all he's experienced. Um, he wants nothing more than just to ascend the ranks. Like when his father had came back from a retreat, his first words to his father were like, "Okay, what did you see?" He was sold, and so some things about him is that he was huge on volunteer work. He was huge on giving up his time, which is very much like the witnesses. They were big on youths giving up their summer vacations in order to go help with a needs grade or to auxiliary pioneer or something, more service. He also, um, as he got a little bit older, he started to hold his parents accountable in the faith in which they gave him. Like he thought it was important for him to remind his parents of what they taught him and how important it was to keep their life together. And so, like I said, I don't want to give away too much, but when those things began to come challenge, he began to act out. And he had a very optimistic point of view as long as things went according to the Myerism plan. Whenever things were outside the plan, they were doomed to fail in his mind. So he was very protective of that. And if I was to say like his perfect idea of happiness in a perfect world, it would be the garden. It would be everybody inside that garden listening to Myerism teachings and finding enlightenment. So it was a very naive point of view, but like I say, I saw myself in that so much because I know we were mentioning earlier about the bite model, and like if there was just a steady case for the bite model, it would have been him. Like he was controlled behaviorally. The information in which he was given was controlled. There was even a scene, and I don't know if when any of the characters that we're covering, the daughter, like Hawk's younger sister. There was a scene in which Eddie was reading a nighttime story to the daughter, and it was like a kid's ladder book. And that brought me back to just being brainwashed as a kid, reading my book of Bible stories, reading Great Teacher. And if you read that in a subdued, restful state before you go to bed, you're just accepting all that stuff, and then you're going to think about it while you're sleeping. And this the what's the word I'm looking for? The when they just inculcate something into your mind, what do they call it? The brainwashing is just like you can't escape it. So for me, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Childhood indoctrination.
Childhood indoctrination, absolutely. Yeah, you can't escape it because at that point you want to prove your parents like, no, hey, I love you guys. I'm listening to what I'm a good kid, but you're giving up your right for free thought, for to process what your parents are telling you. You just give that up, you surrender it. And I've been in that situation before.
Well, before we move on to the bite model, I actually want to show a clip of what we've been talking about so that we can move on, because we're going to start digging into more of the bite model and how it affected how we see all of our characters through the bite model, but also dive in more to set up for the rest of the because we're going to be reviewing season 1 in our next episode. I see you guys pouring in. Make sure that you share the stream as you come in. So as you guys, Molly, you want to say something as I set this up, or was it about the bite model, which we're going to discuss next?
Yeah, so basically I also wanted to say about Eddie that when I first watched the first episode. What are you doing? Sorry, my kids. So when I first watched the episode, I did not understand. Like Eddie was so reluctant to speak about what happened in the retreat, and then when I watched it again, like in a hindsight, when I saw what happened, I was like, oh, that's what's happening. So that reluctance, looking back from what happens to Eddie down the line, it's like, yeah, he knows. He said, there is no light, there is no light, and he saw some very messed up shit about Meyerism and about, Steve Meyer, the leader of the cult, the founder of the cult. And it was so like traumatic to him that he just couldn't wrap his head around it. And I relate to Eddie the most out of the characters, and Hawk, Eddie and Hawk, and Sarah. These are the trinity for me in this series who I relate to. Sarah, because she's just so zealous, but she has those moments of clarity like, fuck you, it's gonna feel good when Eddie leaves and stuff like that. So she kind of knows that something is not right, but she can't quite like name it. And then there's Eddie, who's doubting and hurting because of it. And then there's Hawk, who's young, has been indoctrinated all his life as a young kid, and wants to just get take the vows, get baptized, move on. And basically, Eddie's main fear, he says it time and time again, is the shunning. Like, as Jehovah's Witnesses do, they are like, oh well, we don't shun, we don't, it's a loving provision. It's a loving provision, and loving for who?
Right. So here's a little bit, a snippet of the trailer. If you guys haven't seen it, here we go.
Eddie, when you came to us, what did you find? Home. The future is coming. Poverty, political instability, terrorism. Everything we know will collapse. I don't want to live for this moment. I want to live forever.
Oh, live forever. We've heard that before.
Not only have you heard that before, I mean, that was our life. And not only was our life to be, these cults, they need something more for you to be looking for. It has to transcend whatever is happening here. You're looking, working. If you notice, like even in the beginning with the RBC type work, the pamphlets, the love bombing, the meetings that they had, all of it, it was just a lot of work. We're working towards something. Go ahead, Molly.
Goddamn. Sorry, my mic. So anyway, another thing is like related to looking for more, is that they have a high control on what media you can consume. Don't consume media after the 70s because it's dark and corrupt, and they don't. They have the meetings all the time, and they have like the M machine that they need to do. They have the like realignment, they have the offset. Like they are so caught up in the related work, like tending to the garden, like the actual physical existing garden. Like they simply have no time to do stuff outside. And that's what pioneering is for JWs. It keeps them in the loop, it keeps them brainwashed and good, ready to go. Because if and I said this, I guess, half jokingly and seriously too, now it's like here in a serious manner. Whenever a system wants you to not seek your own information other than what they can provide for you, that's a big ass red flag that they have a malicious intent, either to distort information and just brainwash you with misinformation, or to, like here, get you in a cult. And I guess that's another thing that I recall. I'm quite young, so I remember being a kid as a JW. And I remember that whenever something involving another religion happened on TV, whenever like an action movie came where they shot a person or something, whenever something with magic or other like spiritual thing happened on screen, I was like, Satan, no! Like as a kid, like that's just a massive like information control. And most of these stories are like totally benign and mostly
So let's talk
meaningless.
a little bit about the bite model itself as we close into our last 20 minutes here. This is actually going to cover the screen here, and I don't want it to. It's going to cover us all here, but it talks about 4 different things here. It talks about behavior control, which I think you tried to mention, or the information control is what you mentioned in the case of Hawk. But it was really the case in all of them: thought control and emotion control. We're going to put this slide actually in the comments so that you guys can take a closer look.
And I'm gonna drop the Freedom of Mind, the link to you if you want.
So, STZ, you talked a little bit about your character. I guess with Cal, who is the de facto leader of the group, because the
We never
founder
got
is
to
away.
Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, RC.
We never got to Sarah.
I'm trying to. Go ahead. I'm listening. RC, go ahead. Sarah's a big character.
Sarah's Molly's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was born in. I love the fact they used the phrase "born in" too. She used the people who made this used a lot of insider lingo, and then they created different insider lingo. It really was kind of surreal watching some of it, right? Because you could substitute their specific language and their special words for the special words that we used to use, and it all kind of matched up. And didn't they call it the truth too in this show?
Yeah.
The truth, and don't get drawn away from the truth. And then the light is the other thing, their other key phrase, right? But yeah, Sarah, like I was saying before we started, I relate to Sarah because she's my ex-wife. We were together while we were JWs, and she was a little bit in Sarah's shoes, which was I was being secretive. I clearly had things on my mind that I wasn't discussing, and she wondered if I was cheating on her. And that's what happens to Sarah. Her husband is going online and researching the organization and trying to figure out if he wants to believe it anymore and trying to make sense of things. And when you're in a cult, you don't disclose those things to your partner because you're afraid that you could damage their faith. And for me, I wanted to figure it out first before I said anything to my wife, because what if I'm wrong and then she leaves and dies at Armageddon because of me. So I had to bear that burden alone until I was willing to come forward. And you see him in the same situation, which is he knows it's going to cause friction in his marriage. Their whole life is centered around this. He's not about to have the discussion with her that he doesn't believe this. And then when you the other thing you see as it goes on is like she turns him in for that. What do they call that process? That auditing process. Scientology calls it auditing. I don't know what they would call it in the show. I forgot.
Reprogramming. I don't forgot.
Something, right?
Realignment.
Realignment.
Your mic's muted.
Realignment.
Yeah. So that right there reminded me of the whole you're not unburdening. You need to unburden. Yeah, there's special talk like unburden, right? Which with the elders, it's like go seek spiritual assistance, right? That's our special phrase, which is basically we don't want you to have the headspace to think about this on your own and decide whether it makes sense. So to deprive you of that headspace, as soon as you begin questioning it, you are supposed to go disclose that to somebody else. And that's what he's doing, that he's not supposed to be doing that, right? He's not supposed to be thinking about it on his own. He's supposed to go unburden himself. And the same thing is like The problem is when you go do that, their job is not to sit there and say, "Well, what do you think? How are, like, does this make sense to you?" You know, it's okay for you to leave. You know if that's like if I go and burden myself to my friend and they go, "Hey, man, sounds like your job's not working for you. Sounds like you might want to go get another job." But in the witnesses and in this story, imaginary cult story,
Right.
that's not the goal to help you reach your own conclusions. It's to beat you back into submission and force your mind back into the path, right?
Yeah.
So the whole unburdening thing, it's not unburdening, it's go submit yourself to some psychological manipulation until you get your head back the way we want it.
Yeah.
And that's why he can't talk to his wife about it. And then she thinks that he's cheating on her.
Yeah.
But do you remember that scene where he's in the library
Hmm.
and he's like searching the website and the website comes up like Meyerism is false or Meyerism is a cult and he gets shocked. It's like I remember that feeling because like
Yeah.
RC said, before my husband left the cult, I would go I had a whole VPN, not a VPN, but a Tor browser, and just a bunch of other stuff I didn't even realize or didn't even know before. But it was other people who were guiding me to basically say that Jehovah Witnesses is a cult. And I remember the first time that I landed on JW Facts, it was a mistake. I can remember the fear I felt. I remember physically shaking. I remember reading some of it, and I clicked off of it, but then it stayed with me. I never forgot it, and I thought if I could remember, I can even remember it now. It was talking about the paradise, which was something that as a pioneer, of course, that was my point of sale. That's what I was pushing out here. But it talked about whether or not it would be a physical impossibility for so many people to fit on the earth and be resurrected, and almost a logistic problem. And it was something that I had never even thought of before. But in that moment when I saw when I s- that captured that when the filmmakers capture Eddie looking at doubting sights, you know what I'm saying? If you have never, I know people had some problems with this particular series because they felt like, are they a cult or are they a main religion or what is it they're trying to do? But if you are a person that was a doubter, then you know what that moment is like.
Hmm.
Go ahead, Molly.
I mean, about that scene, and it's mainly Eddie who the camera just takes such amazing shots of Eddie when like these moments of what the fuck, man, hit him. And well, first of all, Aaron Paul has like big ass eyes, and that expresses shit so well on camera, at least to me. Like his acting is very raw and like vulnerable to me, and that's why I usually like his stuff. And so shout out to Aaron Paul. And yes, I am thirsting, even though I wouldn't have sex with him, but I would have dinner with him. Uh, and basically, the thing is that when the camera is like spinning around him, and I don't know how much of it was like impromptu, just them randomly finding it, but there are multiple scenes with Eddie where the camera he stands in like the center and the camera starts spinning, and then he starts spinning with the camera, and the scene when he's in the room unburdening, and the scene in the scenes he has while on the walk on the beach and stuff. I'm trying not to give stuff away, but it's so hard with him because this like the first season is just so, like, I remember I lost a shit ton of weight when I first became an like apostate, when I first realized that, dude, not only was I abused at home, but actually in a second home where they said like, oh, we love you and Jehovah loves you, and I was like, oh wait, That was a whole other section of abuse. I did not put my finger on it because I was like 16. But you see, the point was that I became just weak. I know that I felt like, life left my body. I felt like my brain is not working anymore. I felt like, what's the point? And I was trying to make sense of it. I then, like, tried to find God. And then, well, if you follow this channel, you possibly realized I did not find God. I found many things, but not God. And I think especially the music too, most of the times it's very subtle, but very like natural. I feel like they use mostly like drum and like
Mhm.
string based music, which I think is very subtle, but it can play on, like, that accelerated heartbeat that you have when you start feeling chased, like when you start feeling the like claws sinking in your back. Like, that's what it felt like to me as well. And I think I'm not gonna go into it because it's a big point in the season's rest, and it's not in the first episode, so I'm not gonna go into it. But I'm gonna go into it next Saturday, apparently, about this feeling like you're a prey, feeling like you're deer in the headlights. And Cal has a moment in this first episode. I'm not sure if if you had notes on that ending scene where Cal is talking
Well, we
about.
have so many notes on all of our characters. I don't think we actually got to them all. But I do want to say this one thing though about the unburdening part.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that after you finish. I'm gonna say something too.
Okay, with the unburdening part, the fact that they kept record of their people's wrongs reminded me so much of the elders meeting, because sometimes if you're a repeat offender going in the back room, they have a file on you. And if you have never been in the back room before, then or been a Jehovah's Witness that have never experienced a judicial meeting before, then you probably wouldn't connect too much with the
Hmm.
unburdening process. And even though the unburdening process was really exaggerated for this particular cult, locking you in rooms and that sort of thing. It was a
That's
little bit more extreme than what we would have experienced at Jehovah Witnesses. But go ahead, STZ. You were going to say something
Actually,
about the
you,
burden.
you mentioned the thought I had.
What was the thought? I don't want to overtalk you.
Well, the fact that they presented it as a unburdening session. Like it sounds something inviting. It sounds like, hey, who wouldn't want to unburden? Like who wants to carry the pain and stress from your bad mistakes? But when you get back there, and if you've ever been in a judicial back room, you realize it's not exactly how it's portrayed out in public. When you get back there, the questions that they ask, the manner in which they ask them, you have no control over how long it's going to last. If they wanted you to come back and do another day, you got to come back and do another day. I mean, it was very similar. I mean, it may not have been on like the drugs and stuff he was taking, drinking the juice, but I mean, when you're back there, you're under so much intense scrutiny because it's just not the three brothers who are in front of you. It's also God above who they tell you that they have his blessing, that they can, read hearts because he's empowering them some type of way. And I mean, it's just totally, it's a mind F. And it's just so abusive.
Abusive is the key word. A piece of his key word. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up here. Go ahead, Molly. Did you have any final thoughts?
Yeah. So about how it's not that extreme, it's actually taken from Scientology. Like, Scientologists actually do that. They lock you in a room with one assigned person, tap you on a machine, and they allegedly can tell if you're going clear or not by how the machine reacts to what you're saying. And they actually use that to, just make you be like, oh, share, keep sharing, keep saying it. Yeah, come on with the trauma, all of it. Like, out with the trauma, all of it. Your daddy beat you, out with it. Your dog got shot in front of you, out with it. They want it all out, and they actually record it all, just like they do, for using it against you. And that happened to Leah Remini, actually. Like, a whole website was launched called like Remini Lies, something like that, and the Scientologist pushed all her like going clear confessionals out there.
Wow.
And about I want to mention about Cal. First of all, I love the character because, like you said, he's very complex, and he's very like, is he gonna do good? Is he gonna go bad? He's like dancing that thin line, and I love when characters do that. And I love the speech he has at the end. He's like, oh well, you know how those people in Plato's cave were locked in the dark with the fire, and they saw some shadows, and they thought that was reality, but then one of them broke free and realized it was humans and animals passing, and then went back ranting and raving, telling the others the truth. And Plato asks, what would the prisoners who were not out yet do? Possibly kill him. And basically, he uses it in the opposite way it should. Plato's cave is supposed to be when you're intelligent and you subject your knowledge to scrutiny, people are gonna think you're crazy or you're overreacting, and you're ranting and raving. When you have knowledge and when you have the willpower and the will and the want to research more. But he's saying, no, we're the person who got free, we're the one who saw the light, and you, as a follower of the light, you're supposed to be a social pariah. You're supposed to risk your life. You're supposed to not mind if the prisoners want to kill you. And I think that's also something very similar that JWs do, is push this narrative like, we're free, we're Jehovah's happy people. And I remember this story about a Cuban little girl whose parents were JWs, and it was in the Watchtower or Awake, whatever. And it was like this 6-year-old girl did not want to take the "We will be like Che" oath in school, so Castro himself was summoned. Like, dude, there's this like weird Jehovah something chick. She's not willing to take the "We will be like Che" oath. What's up? And so we, as kids, we were taught that this is how you should go. You should risk being shot dead at school and be like a total social pariah, like you said, like not being able to salute the flag and stuff. It's not a thing here, but it's many other things here. Like, you are not supposed to interact with outsiders, and I think it's very great how the last minutes of this episode at the end, if you're an ex-fundamentalist or an ex-cult member, you will see how he's abusing philosophers and how they went about their thinking and their search for information and knowledge to make it look like you, because you found the ladder or you found Jehovah or whatever, you have the truth, and that's why you're a social pariah. That's why people are gonna like persecute and kill you, and you should be okay with that and happy about it. In fact, I know I talk too much. I'm gonna shut up now.
Well, you know what?
Well,
Molly
no,
is going to actually talk about this more on her channel. She's going to do a more in-depth character profile. So if you guys want to take a look at some of her ideas about that, you might want to take a look at that. RC, why don't you close us out?
Oh, I was going to agree with the stuff about witnesses appropriating philosophy and psychology even, and then pretending like they came up with it. And there's that cup that I love so much. Yeah, so in that scene, speaking of that actor, when they're given that speech and there's a dramatic dropping of the projector screen, and everybody stands up and they're clapping and they're having this emotional moment, and he's standing there and you see his face, and it's like, He's like the look on his face is like, what the fuck am I a part of?
Yeah.
You know? And it, like, I literally I literally started choking up at that moment because, like, I know exactly the feeling being at the Kingdom Hall and everybody's excited about something and it's already starting to wear off and you're beginning to realize I'm not one of these people anymore.
Right.
And what does that even mean for me? What kind of life is that going to be? And, you know, so yeah, it was very well done. I felt like there were several moments that captured the actual experience of being in and coming out.
Ramona, you're back. Hey.
Sorry, can I?
Hang on,
Can I
Molly.
just?
Hang on 1 second, Molly. We're actually closing out our stream here, and I want to give Ramona. How much of this did you hear? I know you had something.
You know what? The Jehovah's Witnesses was at my door.
Girl, you gotta be joking. But
That was my mom.
Ooh.
That was my mom.
Yeah.
And she came into the room. I had to minimize this because she came into my room. She wanted me to
help
order
you
her
out.
something on Amazon. Oh God.
I tried to help you out and
mom
keep you off the stream so she wouldn't see you.
Oh
I didn't know
God.
if she was.
Is your mom still an active member?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was here too. And they came without no warning.
Yeah, so any non-witnesses that watch this stream, like, we're not exaggerating. She has to hide what's on her browser window because her family that's still in the cult just came by. It's literally
my God.
You're replaying the first episode of this TV show in real life.
I know this is like happening right now in real life.
And even witnesses come to our house invited on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, did you see how quick I went black? I had turned the camera off real quick, and then I text you. I'm like, my mom is here.
Wait a minute, and I knew exactly what that. Here's the thing: if you are a former cult member, you know exactly what that means when you know the other person's in the cult. It's like, okay, let me try to figure out something. Let me try to help her out. You know what I'm saying? Because we ain't trying to get nobody snitched on. And the thing of the matter is, we were actually talking about Ramona as we're closing out our stream about unburdening. Remember the unburdening system that they had? And why don't you just, I guess you could talk a little bit about how you saw your situation in I mean, I guess since it's in front of us, since they decided to stop on by. Okay. Tell us how you saw some of your situation in the path.
Oh my God. It's like, well, I can speak from fresh experience because it's like when you wake up and you PMO like I am, and you always think somebody's over your shoulders or someone is telling on you and you're looking over your shoulders trying to make sure, did they figure out what I'm doing, my activism, my protest of things. And so like when my mom popped up, I thought for sure somebody, you know, because I called myself when I shared this stream. Yep. And so I made sure I excluded some people that I know had access to my parents and JW. But I'm like, did I miss out on, you know, blocking those people? And I'm like, she popped up right up in the same time we were doing the stream. And it was so suspect the way she was talking to me. And I'm like, I'm caught. You know, I was ready for it, but my heart was beating 1,000 miles per minute. And then, you know, if they find out, they're going to report you to the elders. They're like, okay, I'm going to give you this chance. You got to report yourself. And if you don't, I'm going to give you 3 days and then I'm going to report you. Then you got to go unburden or talk to the elders about your activity and your beliefs. And I'm like, I felt it. That's the reason I'm like, the path was so much like what we went through growing up, having to unburden yourselves to human men so they can tell you whether or not they feel you're suited to be part of them or you should be kicked out and excommunicated and have no contact with your family.
Yeah. So real life hit us real fast on the Duck and Religion. It hit us real fast. Go ahead, RC. Did you have something?
Oh, I just said that's crazy that it was happening in real time.
Wow. Hey, well, we all got your back, Ramona. We all got your back.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, anyways, My Little Pony figurines. Let's continue our discussion.
All right. Can I just say about RC? You know, you mentioned Cal and like his moment of what the fuck am I a part of, I see Cal as like Meyerism's Rutherford. Like if you look at JW's before, like when it was run by, hang on, I almost said Joseph Smith.
Russell.
Russell, yeah, that's it. It was like, you know, they celebrated holidays, Christmas tree in Bethel and stuff. And then you see when Rutherford came in, he was like, no beards, no Christmas, no holidays, nothing. You're 100% or nothing. You're either, you know. And I'm like, whoa.
They brought in the disfellowshipping in the 40s.
70s. No?
What's that?
Or was it the
No,
shunning?
it was. I thought it was the 1952.
Yeah.
Yeah, late 40s, early 50s. I can't remember.
50, sorry, my bad.
All I remember is because there's an article in the 40s saying that shunning is wrong. And then within a few years, they're doing it themselves. And unfortunately, that 1940s article is not on JW Library. You know, like they just disappear some of that stuff that's old enough to be incriminating. So you can't show people like, hey, they used to say that shunning people was wrong before they decided to do it themselves, because they'll think you fabricated the article and that it's not a real Watchtower article because it's not on their website.
That's how they gaslight you, because people who know about it or used to be part of it and mention that, they'll say they're lying. That's not true. We never did that. We're a loving organization. You know, we never said that. They're listening to apostates, sir.
Well, I just want to go ahead. Go ahead, Molly.
Last fall when I talked to JWs, like active JWs, like elder JWs, he was like, well, that's apostate material. And I'm like, it's literally your material. What?
And on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us on the stream. Our next stream is I think it's 3 weeks from now. And Ramona, we're going to start off with you when we have our next stream. So don't let me forget. Because we're going to start off with you. And then our next stream, we're going to actually review the entire season of season 1. So all of you guys who binge watch ahead of time, y'all a little bit ahead. But we'll binge, and then I think we'll focus more on the similarities between the Jehovah's Witnesses and Meyerism. And I think what we'll try to do is try to give some, I don't want to say pointers or tips. I think that would be kind of interesting, considering that, Ramona, that I always forget until today that you were Pimo, like stuff like that.
That's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
So I'm just saying, but I think that it would be great, because I think STZ, I remember you actually coming out of the Witnesses, and this was one of the first series that you saw.
Yeah, it was eye-opening.
Yeah, so we're gonna tackle season 1 in our next episode. In our next episode of Dunker Religion, our special episode is gonna be on a Saturday. Make sure you guys tune in. Make sure you guys actually watch the episode with us, so that you'll have some things to contribute to the discussion as well. So we're going to go ahead and end our broadcast, and we're going to go ahead and say bye.
Bye.